Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to the Story Player Podcast. I am the host today, Winston Powell, otherwise known as Acorn Bringer, and I am joined, as always, by my bestest of friends, Zachary Snader. How are you doing, Zach?
Hello, sir. I'm doing well. It is good to be here with you again.
Yes, it's awesome. Always good to get the boys back together.
Do
our boy therapy.
Boy therapy. Here we go.
Our gamer boy therapy. Yep. That's what this is.
That's right. We can.
That's all this ever
Gamer
was.
boy therapy would be a really good shirt, though.
Oh, yeah.
We got merch ideas
in some
flowing
circles.
already.
Yeah, in some circles that would work. I don't know. I'm just like trying to sell these T-shirts of mine, right? And
yes.
I just imagined putting that up on the store, and that would not work.
But you could have your shirt and then just have it say Gamer Boy Therapy right underneath.
Yeah. Maybe not, though. Instead, I won't do that.
Yeah. Maybe a completely different idea, and not that one at all.
Yeah. Anyway, how you doing?
No, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I look forward to this every week, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I really do. It is nice to have this time where we can talk about our silly little games industry topics and such. And I feel
as
like
little as we play games, we can at least talk about them.
Man, yes, I did actually play. I've played like 2 new games in the last week, which
oh my God.
is
got me so excited.
So exciting. I know.
Yeah. I got this weird like spark of excitement hearing that because I haven't played anything for months.
Oh, really? Yeah, I played That's Not My Neighbor, which is a Flash game that's kind of akin to what we're working on. It's like Papers, Please, but cosmic horror-y sort of.
Oh, yeah.
And then
cool.
I started to play Switch with my son. He's like, I kind of gave him Baba Is You on the Switch, and I'm just like, here you go. And he had no idea what the heck to do with that. But he would make little Baba move, that was cool. But he really liked watching me play Smash. So we played Smash Ultimate, and we played some Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which was cool. He's still just like, he can pay it maybe 45 seconds of his attention. But it's still a very, very exciting 45 seconds. And the cutest thing that he does, dude, he'll just like, if Mario just like jumps on a Goomba, he'll just laugh. He thinks it's the funniest thing in the world for Mario to destroy the lives of these little Goombas. And it brings me so much joy. So
It's a good one.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find more experiences where I can just like get a little laugh out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw when I was in Brazil, we went to the arcade and there was a dad there with his son who was probably just about the same age as your son, sitting in one of the racing cockpit things, steering the wheel.
Just like on the demo screen?
On the demo screen. And he was like having a blast. And
it's so
I think
awesome.
there was something wrong with it. There's something like the steering wheel was stuck or something, but he was still like, trying to jerk it around and stuff.
Yeah.
And I told the dad, I was like, hey, the other steering wheel is fine, so you could play over there. And the dad just looked at me and was like, I don't think he cares at all. He's having a blast right now.
He's just like, dude, they're lost in their little world.
Yeah, that's when I feel so far away from fatherhood, is when I'm like worried about things like that, or like the experience, like the general play experience. Whereas like a dad knows that the kid is just there to like, just to have colors flashing before his eyes and have a steering wheel,
Yeah, I mean, dude, their imaginations are just so untethered by reality, which allows them to enjoy just about anything. Dude, I put my son.
What are
my
we
son
doing?
And I
we should untether our minds.
I know, for unplug, man. Just like be out there. Dude, last night, my son and I was feeding my son. And we're in the kitchen, and we're just playing. I just put a little towel over his head, a little hand towel. This kid proceeds to play with this hand towel for 10 minutes. He's like wearing it like a robe, and then he puts it on his head and runs in circles. And then he puts it on his head like a shawl, and he looks at himself in the mirror, and he's like punking his reflection in the mirror.
Like a boxer.
Yeah, 10 minutes. If you gave me a towel and you're like, go play for 10 minutes, I'm like, you're insane. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, kid, have fun with this.
It was.
Yeah,
my
sister has
nice.
My sister has a son who's, I think he's 2, and he got in timeout for being obnoxious at the dinner table, and so he's in the high chair. So she just basically took the high chair, he's strapped down to it, right, and she just put him in the middle of the hallway and spun him around so he's not facing us anymore, to like put him in timeout.
Yeah.
And like a crazy person, he just continues to like entertain himself by like babbling and giggling. And it's just like an insane asylum like set piece where just there's a guy there just talking to himself strapped to this chair.
You can't put it
in the hallway.
That sounds.
And then
about
he just
right.
starts like, yeah, he's making the best of it, and he just starts spitting on the floor. Like he has nothing to go with, but he makes something out of it. Like he just starts making a mess there.
There's a lesson in there for us all.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just complete and utter chaos. It very much like watching a proto Joker sit in a corner. That's what I felt like.
Joker origins.
My nephew is is possessed or something. But Zach, man, I heard you had a topic for us today.
Yeah,
juicy one.
Yes, smooth transition. I did. I don't think there's a natural transition away from that. But this week, well, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. But it really came to a head this week because I went to a dinner here in Denver with a whole bunch of other. I hesitate to call myself a CEO because I don't feel like one, and it feels like a really lofty title when your company is barely a company.
And for listeners, Zach is wearing a T-shirt that says "Quit your job" on it. That's not very CEO-like.
Also true. That is also true. Maybe that reinforces it. I don't know. But no, I went to this dinner, and the topic it's like topic based. So we all kind of go there under the pretense of like, we're going to have a conversation around sales, which
it's like a story players dinner.
I know, right? But this was mostly sales for like B2B software companies. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be a fit, but I did have some good conversations with people around just finding your audience as a game developer. Well, for me specifically as a game developer, for them, for their companies, whatever. But I've been trying to figure out like who our audience is, because we've taken our studio in a direction that it wasn't originally intended to be. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means in terms of who we serve and what sort of problems those people might have with games, like what experiences they might be looking for, where they're seeking those things. And I've just been thinking about that a lot more. So this is kind of an open-ended question / dialogue / idea, but like, how do we as developers go about quantifying who our players are? And how do we as players build an identity around the types of experiences that we play and the types of studios that we engage with? And that's sort of where I would open the floor for you and for us to maybe explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, there's totally like, you get the fan group kind of, they kind of orbit around different IPs and stuff, like the Silent Hill population. They're the big ones now since the Silent Hill 2 game just released. So there was a lot of divisiveness in that community, right? Because there was the faithful like OG players of that who like worship Silent Hill and the way it was, the first 4 games. And then there's the whole dialogue behind like, should it be released at all? And there's the new Konami, they're trying to reinvent themselves. So there's definitely an identity kind of crisis there for that studio there.
Yeah,
they have like a strong IP, so like they found their audience over the course of those 4 games and beyond.
But I do wonder, like, well, I wonder if Silent Hill is a good example, because I guess Silent Hill originally came out on the PS1, right? Mm-hmm. And if you were looking for horror on PS1, it was like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, maybe some other stuff here and there that I
Oh,
can't think of.
There's bunches. There's like Nightmare Creatures, Dino Crisis.
Was
You
Dino
know, all
Crisis a
the
horror game?
Capcom horror games.
Okay.
I think it was one of the big two though. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I wasn't
that
around
feels
then,
right.
so maybe there
I
was.
wonder, dude. I feel like I should. So here's kind of the challenge for me. Not to get too prescriptive, but also maybe it will be a good example for this conversation. Like I used to work at Newzoo, right? My job, in part, was to sell other companies on solving this exact problem, and using the data that we had access to contextualize how they might find their ideal audience. And yet I'm struggling to do that for myself. And there's this whole notion of like, you know, game players falling into one of some kind of persona or some combination thereof. And yet being able to really quantify and qualify that and find the specific places to reach these people, I don't know, man. Like, how do you come up with that identity? How do you like solidify the identity of like, this is our community, these are our players, these are the types of players that we have, you know?
In my experience, just because I'm a solo developer, when I started working on games, I was making kiddie games, you know, like I was making mobile games, and I made that Adventure Time game, and, you know, lighthearted, cute stuff. And like, that's a direction I chose because that's kind of what's popular on, or not, we didn't choose that. That's a direction that we went with because that was kind of like, you know, the art style was easy to make, and, you know, I love Adventure Time, and that's kind of what was popular on mobile, was these like high energy, colorful things. When I started working on other projects after that, and I went with horror stuff, I just kind of trusted myself that I know what's good. Like at a certain point, you just have to trust yourself to know what's appealing. I think when people have identity problems, it's because they don't have taste. They don't have a direction they want to go in. And so they just think of like, what's trending, what the industry looks like, what's this, what's that. And so they can kind of, you know, they're diluting themselves by just trying to go with the flow. Whereas when you're kind of inventing your own IP or making a name for yourself, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, like as an independent developer, I just went with what I thought looks cool and what is cool and what appeals to me. And I have had this thought before while working, just being like, I know what's good, and whoever finds it, like there's bound to be people like me out there who appreciate the same things. Because I'm not into niche things, you know, like I'm not into these, you know, I don't know what else is there out there that's like super niche, right? Like very specific things. Like if I was just into that certain thing, I would feel a little shakier about it. But because I'm a fan of like big blockbuster movies, I'm a fan of like popular movies and things that people generally consider good. And when I create things, the response is usually like, that's cool looking. Like my own sensibilities, I can trust to be a thing that's cool. I don't have that like perspective on like audience who kind of orbit around a product because I haven't released the product yet. So I don't have that point of view, but like the right people for this project found it. And I'm pretty sure that just based off of the direction I'm going, my next project will have that same audience. And then also some other people who are interested in that very specific project. Like my second project is going to be a very different thing. It's going to have a similar vibe, similar look. It's going to have sensibilities that I have. So yeah, it's just for me trusting my own sensibilities for finding that audience. Because I think the irony is you don't find an audience, the audience finds you. And so you get those types of people coming out of the woodwork. Like I don't know these people. I would never have said like, yeah, my game it's in the community, the lo-fi horror retro throwback PS1 people. Like that genre of game didn't appear to me until I started working on this game. Like I didn't know that's what I was going for, you know. So I didn't find the audience. They found my game, and then I fell into this like group of people who are making similar things or things that are like, you know, on the same page.
Okay. I have two directions I want to go with the follow-up. I might forget the first, but I do want to kind of expand upon the second, which is like, that last point that you just brought up of this lo-fi horror thing that you didn't necessarily know was a thing, but like now that you have identified that as a cohort of people that find your work engaging, do you find that you may also be able to tap into that vein a little bit more deeply where, I don't know, let's say Crow Country, right? Like Crow Country, I know we've talked about it before, but with Crow Country coming out and doing as well as it did, do you feel that opens a door for you to prospectively reach out to players of Crow Country, or like really diving into that specific audience that is engaged with that game, either through socials or through the game itself, and trying to have them become more deeply exposed to like you as a developer and to Of Love as a product?
As far as like Crow Country specifically goes, that's like appealing to the Resident Evil fan base.
I mean,
like that's a very Resident Evil style game.
Maybe it's not the best example. I don't know what a good example. You mentioned retro horror and modern, and like that's the first thing I jumped to. I'm sure there's a better example.
No, that's a good example.
But yeah,
I think that
any game that might fit into that, right? Like, do
as soon as you
tap into that?
As soon as you know yourself, you know the like strengths that you have. And so, yeah, my strengths would be targeting these other audience groups, like other like YouTubers who cover specifically indie horror games. Like if I was doing a good job with PR and had time to do my own PR, I would be targeting these groups of people. Because it's a little pool of people. I wouldn't say little actually. It's like, a niche group of people that you can dip into, and people will stick to your. Trying to do a visual metaphor. You dip your thing in and they stick to it.
You're the honey. You're the honey and they're the bees.
Right. Something like that. But I think that's valid. Like there are people who they're just interested in that tone, like that vibe. What I'm struggling to think of though is like when you're a producer in a larger company, like then where do you find your direction? Like in the situation you're in.
Yeah.
Where you're just trying to produce something. Trying to find an audience in that way is totally foreign to me. Like that's where you want to look at statistics and you want to find out like which groups of people are doing this and who's doing that and where people already are, because you want to go where the audience is and stuff. So in your shoes, like your game is going to have a face that isn't your face. It's going to be the face of the collective group of people who made it. And that may or may not appeal to certain other people. And so you got to figure out, you got to like target what that type of person is. Yeah. I can't speak on that. I can't give you advice because I'm purely visual. Like my game is only visually a horror lo-fi game. It doesn't play like anything like, the gameplay is secondary really. It's really an art piece. And so like my strengths are just finding similar visuals, which is easy. That's an easy thing. So as far as like visuals are concerned, your game is going to have to find something. If not, it's going to have to go after a specific genre of play or have some kind of hook. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea of trying to find some kinship between what you're building and an established audience by leaning on either the genre, which does make sense. I mean, there are even genre specific publishers out there, but also like kinship in art, right? And finding people who might latch onto the style as well.
Because art is the first thing you see, right? It's a visual thing. Like you can't get around that. You can have an art style that is like super cool and like cool vibes and lo-fi and whatever, and then the game is like a strategy game, and you're still going to appeal to those like people who are in it for that reason, for that vibe. Maybe they're not fans of strategy games, but because it has that feel to it, they're all of a sudden in. Like World of Horror has that lo-fi kind of Japanese graphic style, like pixelated Game Boy Advance kind of look to it. And it's, I haven't played it. I ought to play these games I'm talking about, so I don't sound like an idiot. But
I haven't played Crow Country, but I can get enough context based on what I've seen. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a pretty quick one to pick up. But like this game, World of Horror, I think it's more of a like RPG in like the strictest sense, and like a text kind of visual novel, like a mix between those two. And like there's no crossover there between that genre and the Resident Evil genre, right? But because of the visual style, it connects the two. The lo-fi horror fans, they get in there. And the subject matter and stuff. It's all interesting for those types of people. So, yeah, that's where I stand on that.
So the other direction I wanted to take this, by the way, I'm not looking for specific advice for my situation. I don't want this to be like a therapy hour.
We're a good like comparison because I'm the indie developer who's solo and you're working with a team and you're trying to produce something.
I mean, I bring up the question more as a general exploration. I think we can be proxies for part of how we might answer that, right?
I am definitely.
So you were talking about like the vibe of the audience and the kind of games that you make, and I feel like there is a lot of vibes-based exploration that you need to do when you're still in the process of building an identity for your studio, and perhaps even afterwards, right? Like this is an ongoing problem even for studios that are big AAA studios that have tons of funding and are under like nested labels and all this. It's an ongoing challenge because you always need to have people playing your games, because at the end of the day, this is a business and you need to make money in order to keep doing it, right? But that feeling, that vibe of like, hey, you know, I think I know who my audience might be, but for us, like it means we're trying to reach adventurous players. Initially, it was just going to be fans and players of rugby, and eventually all emerging sports, and eventually sports.
Right.
And that's like, that's a very defined thing, because sports is it's kind of binary, right? Sports is like, it is or it is not the
you like
sport.
it or you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
With what we're building, it's like a Papers, Please adjacent kind of roguelike-ish sort of thing. And it's like, where the fuck do you even begin with identifying who might resonate with that thing? So
that's a tough one.
Yeah. So the answer that I have right now sorry, just to like wrap that up.
No, go ahead.
The answer I have right now is like, I'm trying to see if we presenting ourselves in a certain way of like, hey, here's this art, and just sharing it with people, and like, here's who we are as a studio, and sharing that with people, and seeing if people slowly but surely pick up on that, like if that's a way that we find our audience. But that's not really like a quantification or any real qualification of any kind. Like, it is still kind of a vibe that we're feeling out. And I don't even know if that is the most sensible approach versus trying to be really prescriptive about this from the beginning. But like you're saying, like maybe the majority of us as independent developers who are, even if you are established like yourself, or if you are just starting out, like that picture is pretty ambivalent when you are at that early stage.
Yeah, while you're talking, it kind of made me think of like how Devolver has their like vibe, has their tone that they kind of transmit through their PR and everything. I think they came at the industry with this kind of like alternative kind of punk vibe, and that was very needed back when they kind of hit the main stage. And so I think that's like their angle that they came after. And then their games kind of follow suit. A lot of the games have that kind of alternative, you know, they're all indie games too. They have a vibe, and I think people, they revolve around that. They like that. They devolve around that.
The Devolver Revolver.
So yeah, that's an example, because at this point I think Devolver, they produce these games, but they're a PR company. Like they're just, you know, they're a publisher. They produce things. And their PR is all about that, like, you know, sassy kind of catchy Twitter, you know, tweets, and coming at things with weird angles and commenting on, you know, topics, like big hot button topics, in their trademark sassy way. So they found this kind of like this look for them, and that really works. In a similar way, A24 as a film producer has, it's famously or infamously, however you feel about it, has turned their the things they produce into a theme, like a look. They have a specific look. There's a trend there that you can see. You can kind of tell if something is looking like an A24 movie, or is going after that similar look, kind of like a Wes Anderson movie or a Coen's brother movie, or anyone who's like distinct. They have their theme, and that becomes their trademark, I guess. Quentin Tarantino movies, very distinct as well. So yeah, the same could go for, I think the same goes for studios. Studios that have this kind of personality. It's like a single personality to describe the studio. I think they get a lot of more devout fans than, for example, like Microsoft Studio. They don't have a vibe. They don't have a look. They don't have anything really. They're just a production company. If they did, and they were kind of like, in the public eye and being candid and stuff, then people could get a read on what their vibe is, but they're too corporate, and so they have that coldness to them that you can't really latch onto at all. So yeah, as an independent developer, as anyone who's like a singular vision going in, controlling a product, I definitely think that helps to have kind of like an identity there to lean into. But I think Devolver found that. I don't know if that was necessarily something that they started with, like, we're going to be totally punk rock about everything. I think that they just had that attitude about things. People liked it, and they didn't stop. They just went in on it, to the point where they started doing their presentations, and they're all very flavored, Devolver flavored presentations. And that's something that gives people an anchor to kind of, stick to hover around, to latch onto, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. Without looking at the website or anything, because I am looking at the website right now.
I know, I saw you looking at something.
What would you say is Devolver's, the punk vibe, sure, but like, based on how they present themselves, what would you discern about their audience or the people they are trying to reach through their games portfolio?
I think Devolver is like if Adult Swim like went to college and they went to like a college party, and there was a hot shot wearing like a Hawaiian t-shirt at the party who was like kind of king of the party, running the party or whatever. I don't know.
That's
that whole
great.
Scene, that's Devolver, like the party monster type character, like the guy who's just going all in on things and being disruptive, but in a fun way. And
dude, I love that.
That's kind of my
people trying
to
be the disruptors at parties.
Yeah, saying what no one wants to say, but doing it with a smile on their face, and the goofball, but cool as well. Punk rock. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah,
alternative.
I love that.
What are you seeing on their website?
I'm looking at the first games they published, and I completely forgot that Serious Sam was the first franchise they published. Okay. And then Hotline Miami. I think when Hotline Miami came out, that's when people learned about Devolver. That's how I learned about it.
That's where the Hawaiian shirt comes from. Yeah, okay.
Totally. I think that is a very good prescription of that. And then, Ollie Ollie, Shadow Warrior, Luftrausers. So, the Vlambeer folks.
All these indie darlings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Gods Will Be Watching, which I'm pretty sure was the original Kentucky Route Zero, but I could be making that up. And then Talos Principle. And then a game called Heavy Bullets, and I guess the last of that slate was Fork Parker's Holiday Profit Hike, which
those are their first published
That's games? The first 11 games. 3 Serious Sam games, Hotline Miami, Shadow Warrior, Ollie Ollie, Luftrausers, Gods Will Be Watching, Heavy Bullets, Talos Principle, and then that meme game, I guess.
Yeah. They're a little bit, because Ollie Ollie isn't that like that kind of chilled out like story game, adventure game. I don't know. It seems on brand, like that's all on brand. I don't know how they decided on those games to publish, but they definitely chose them, right?
Like I could see them offering the same description that you just did, though, of like what their studio is. That totally makes sense to me.
Adult Swim's roommate in college, who's like a little wackier.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Adult Swim is like the stoner on the couch, sort of, but still kind of a chill out guy.
The stoner on the couch, but like they're making cool shit all the time.
Yeah,
they're like the David, like if Adult Swim is like David Cho is Adult Swim as a person, I think. Do you know
Who's
David
David
Cho?
Cho?
He's
No.
he's the artist. He did the Facebook mural and got like hella money for it, but he also did Thumbs Up, which is the show where he like hitchhiked around America for a few. Okay, if you don't know, it's
I guess
don't know
if
how to
people know
best
who he
describe
is,
him.
they know who he is. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But sure, yeah, it could be him
like
too.
like kind of a renegade punk artist who has sort of like gone off the beaten path, even for artists, and yeah. Okay, sorry.
I wonder. It's got me thinking now. I wonder if I'm not cool enough for my game. Like the way I interact with my community is
what
very.
a great question. What a great idea.
I think the way I tend to carry myself on social media is very like. I'm what is it called? PC, whatever that means, right?
Sure.
I'm like I'm always politically correct. I'm safe. I'm like I make sure that when I post stuff that it's written well and
do you need
I
to
get
be
the
controversial?
I don't know if I need to have more like an edge to the stuff. It's just I know that's part of my personality because this is something that I produced. Like this game is something that I produced. But I think if you play the game itself, you'll find that it's really like wholesome. It's not like a hardcore in your face horror game. It's just a cute knight who's well-meaning and he's going to find his lost loved one's soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like sure, there's tones there and there's themes there that are all, but like I guess it's like what I'm thinking of maybe is the what is so this is me like trying to reference something. I have no idea what I'm talking about. What's that Junji Ito? Junjo, what is it?
Junji Ito.
Junji Ito of that manga series, right?
Well, he pushes out a lot of books. Actually, I have one.
Okay, I got it. Junji Ito. Okay, good. Yeah,
I have one right
World
here.
of Horror is very inspired by his work. Wait, which one do you have? I missed it. I was
Ramina.
Ramina.
Yeah, I saw one of his works at the library, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to read more Junji Ito.
Yeah, so his work really speaks for itself. Like visually, you can kind of just see, okay, that's kind of creepy, all kind of weird and bizarre, surrealism and all kinds of stuff like that. He's getting more in the public eye now because Adult Swim just produced, not just, they have been producing this anime.
What?
In his spirit. I guess it's like one of his stories turned to anime. Yeah, it's looking really nice. But he is now kind of becoming famous for his personality.
Sorry, I just got really excited. Oh my god, I need to check that out more. Okay.
Check it out later.
I will.
Yeah, check out. It looks really cool. It's very like in the spirit in the drawing because there is a Netflix anime, Junji Ito style anime that's I would say not very good. Personal opinion. I don't like the animation.
Sorry, I don't want us to get away from the thought that you had because it's my fault that we're spiraling out of control.
It is all your fault.
I know. Wait, I'm curious about like this association with Junji Ito and how. Yeah.
No, his stuff obviously horror surrealism, but his personality is cute. Like he's a cutesy guy and he's fun loving and just like he likes cute things. I don't know. He's like seen everywhere just wearing silly hats during Comic-Con or whatever conventions that he visits. And
so you need to be cuter is what you're saying.
I'm just saying that he is kind of illustrating in a very digestible way for most people that people are three-dimensional. Like I make horror because I love horror. I love the themes. I love the visual identity behind it. But I'm like cute as can be, like wholesome, fun-loving. I enjoy walking in the woods. I love nature. Mm-hmm. I'm not like, sitting in a corner with my hair in front of my eyes. The classic archetype of like what kid who draws horror stuff on his homework.
With just like scratchings on the wall.
I was that when I was in high school, but now I've learned to love life and color and vividness and just deep breaths and fresh air. It's very marketable what he's doing, what he has going on, or what people are perceiving. Because he has a huge body of work already people love. And then come to find out that he's not depressed. He's actually quite happy with his life, apparently, as far as like we can tell through media.
Well, there's that whole notion of like, I'm gonna totally butcher this, but like there's more pop music listened to in times of war than the inverse being true. Like peacetime, it's generally sadder music or slower music, or there's some
Right.
kind
And
of like
comedy movies do better. During
yeah, there's some kind of
depressing
like
times.
buoy that is counterbalancing the
Hmm.
general nature of humanity, right? So
Yeah.
in a way, without understanding it any more deeply than that, like I can
Mhm.
totally see someone who makes up this kind of really twisted thing just use that as their mechanism for connecting with the world in the same way that comedians will use humor to uh, create a connection not just for themselves but for other people between like really deeply prolifically horrible things that exist
Mhm.
on this planet and in life,
Yeah.
and be able to create levity from those things,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. It's what's his name from The Watchmen? The Joker, the Jester. What is it?
Oh, the comedian.
The comedian.
Yeah,
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 totally.
totally.
Like the smiley face with blood on it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like, I think put in simple terms, there's always that like yin yang sort of thing with people. But people are so complicated. I don't think like most people know what my life truly is like and the things I go through and the things I feel. But I think they do. Like they get an idea based off of my work, you know. And the same
Hmm.
with all creators. I think you get a vibe from them, and it's people love simplifying things. They love labeling things. They love reducing things, so that it's oh yeah that guy blank, oh this guy other blank. Like
See,
they
but that,
love this sort of like
hmm.
labeling things. And so when you have, and even like this guy Junji Ito, we're seeing the two sides of the coin there, but the coin is a sphere, and there's more than one side. There's more than two sides. So like, as far as like the public eye is concerned, what people can digest, I think that's the limit. I think
Hmm.
understanding that people have more than two emotions
Yeah.
is difficult for people, or two modes of operating. MOs, you might
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
But finding that as like bringing it back to the topic, like you want to embrace that. You want to embrace your dichotomy or your
Hmm.
one dimensionalness. Kind of like the PR for Devolver is one dimensional. Like you can kind of always expect what's going to happen, and it's always going to be, you know, hot button, sassy, and stuff like that. Yeah. So finding it as a creator, as a producer, like I think you need to focus in on one or two things that you are.
Just find your voice and
Uh,
then speak your voice, basically.
Yeah, because it's
Hmm.
a given. People are complicated. Everyone's life is complicated. Consumers have complicated lives. They like consuming things that are simple and digestible, right? So like trying to get in on like there's certain people who follow me who understand that, you know, I had like my mom passed away while I was working on this game. I've had a divorce since then. Um, like that's complicated life things to go through. I've moved countries, I've changed all sorts of things. It's a complicated thing. But for your average consumer, they can't handle that. Like that's not part of the equation. They can't enjoy something if they know that. They want to know that this is like, oh yeah, the horror guy made this horror thing.
Mm.
Isn't he so horror? He's so horror.
Shut up and play the hits. Make your horror,
And there's
horror
nothing.
man.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I like simple things too when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like that's what escapism is all about. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
And so as far as like being a producer of things, being a public face for a company, embracing that simplicity, embracing that being digestible is important. Being too many things, I think, is not marketable. Being understanding who you are, committing to these things, that's what marketability is.
Mm.
So yeah, don't go over two, I guess. Stick to two things.
Yeah. Huh.
Or one. I don't know. I guess that's my take. That's just what I thought of.
Yeah.
When you were talking about that.
No, that's cool, man. That kind of reinforces how we're doing things now. Again, I want to just like talk about our studio the whole time, but for us,
This is our podcast. It's all about.
I know, right? And follow at no.
I think that's what make podcasts nice actually is because you do get to kind of get behind the curtain a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I don't know.
On these
hopefully,
creators.
Hopefully people can connect to our perspectives through their own experience in some way.
Yeah. Well, like what I mean is like we'll never be a theme on this. It's us. It's truly us. Like we'll never be acting. That's why I wanted to make this kind of like a laid back off the cuff thing because that's what people want in a podcast is to get to know the creators for real. So that makes it difficult to market a podcast because we don't have a theme.
Yeah, right. the exact thing that we're talking about right here. Yeah, for us, dude. So to kind of bridging the gap between the whole like adventurous players thing that we found to try to quantify this, and you know, starting with that like rugby fans and players audience, the way in which we came about the idea for our current project was by making the design process collaborative. Because before it was just an idea that I had, and I ended up finding the incredible team that I have now, but they were just kind of like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. I want to work on a game and I'm actually down to do it. And then they were working on that thing, right? As opposed to what we did, where we completely reshaped how we were thinking about the way in which we make games together. So we did sort of like a Double Fine Amnesia Fortnite sort of thing, where we all brought ideas to the table, and then we collectively discussed those and riffed on one another's ideas, and ended up in the place where we have a game that we have basically decided on together by way of sharing our creative energies. You know, it was an idea that was birthed out of a collective of creative output, and to me that feels like a really special and unique thing. Especially when you're not a solo dev, because if you're a solo dev, it's just like there. But for a team, like this idea is ours. It's not mine. It's not any one person's. It's our thing. So I believe the way in which we work on and share that idea is also a direct result of that continued creative output and energy. And I don't know what else to describe it as beyond that, which is part of the challenge, but it's also really
by creating something, you're like starting a theme or a trend, you know? So like by the time you guys produce another thing, there'll be a theme there starting, or a pattern. And that's just like you said, one creator, like ideas go down this pachinko machine inside their head and filter into the slots and whatever, and then the idea becomes a reality once it's been created. The same process happens with a group of people. It's just it comes out different. It's a different algorithm, because there's multiple computers working on it. So yeah, when you guys create this thing, it'll be wholly yours, and it'll find its audience, or the audience will find it based off of whatever little hooks it has for people. And it obviously had hooks for you guys as a group, and so it ought to have hooks for other people. I feel like it'd be hard to produce something that doesn't interest at least some people in some way. The challenge is the challenge I think is being loud enough to where the right people find the project. And then I guess building the identity just comes naturally. If the same team produces another game, it's going to have all those same sensibilities going in. It's going to have grown a little bit more since the last project, and it'll be its own thing, but it'll have maybe the same sense of humor, a similar art style, similar creative design processes or whatever. So yeah, it's all being produced by the same machine, which is your studio, and so it ought to spit out similar flavored things. I believe. But yeah, marketing is a challenge for anyone. So that's always going to be like, you just need to keep shouting it on social media, I guess. I guess that's the way. I haven't seen a lot of success recently, but that's how people do it. You just shout wherever there are groups of people, and then whoever likes to hear the sound of your voice will go there and eat your muffins. There's so many like weird metaphors coming into my mind.
I don't think I've ever heard that one, but yeah, I got it. You just need to tell people about your delicious muffins, and someone will be like, "Oh, I like
someone
blueberry."
Will like it. Yeah, no one starts off liking everything. Like the audience has to find the thing that, you know, they have to identify with it somehow.
Yeah,
they're gonna connect with it in a certain way. I think the more bold of us, like the big bold projects, they find an easy home amongst people, because it's like an obvious hook. It's an obvious thing to latch onto. Like I would say Devolver's thing of just being kind of like the alternative indie publisher, that's like apparent. They've made it very apparent, and it's something that people can immediately identify with, because there are those of us who are like that. They're just like want to break out of these chains of, you know, what do you call it? Capitalism. I don't know. Whatever they're going for, there are other people with that same mentality.
Cool capitalism.
That's what makes it. They're totally the cool capitalists. No, they're yeah.
Well, hey, we have roughly 30 minutes if you wanted to do your topic. Would you be down to transition? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I have a cool topic too.
I think that was.
I loved your topic.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
That was fun. Yeah, thank you for having a good discussion around it. That was nice.
A+ is all around.
All right,
cool.
So
now that we got brass tacks business out of the way, let's talk about fun video game memories with Buddy.
Really dusting off the old tome from the bookshelf, huh?
Yeah, I want to stick true to our theme, right?
Yeah.
We just established we need a theme. So I'm gonna reach into the back of the bookshelf and grab our old dusty tome of memories. And I wanted to talk about, because we're older gamers. We've been there the whole time. A lot of listeners might not have been there the whole time. They might.
I don't know about the whole time.
Well, come on.
I was born, I don't know, 16 years after Pong came out. 15, something like that.
Okay, maybe not the whole time.
We're maybe like the second generation of like
when it was cool, we were there. How about that one?
Sure. We're in our early-ish
when
30s.
When it was kind of all it was cracked up to be, we were there. So I was playing games on the NES, the N64, the PS1. We've gone over this past podcast. Yep. I can't remember which one. We talked about our whole
very
heritage.
Recently.
But really, starting with the PS1 is kind of like where we were conscious, or you were playing. We talked about this. Anyway, we were there the whole time that it was cool. I'm going to say that. So I wanted
games
to talk
aren't cool anymore, man.
I wanted to talk about gaming trends that are kind of commonplace now that we saw the birth of and where those came from for our younger listeners.
You just want to be old men telling war stories?
No, wizened old men.
Mm-hmm.
Wizened.
Okay.
I want to talk. So I'll start with one as an example. I'll give you time to think.
All right.
So
I feel
for
like
example,
I have one already, but go for it.
One that I remember very fondly was heads exploding when you shoot people. There was a time when that was a surprise and that was a delight. There was a time when that wasn't common, and then when it did happen in a game, you felt it, and it was so surprising and exciting. And that moment for me, okay, so there's two moments kind of in the same generation. I'll jump to the one where I was delighted and surprised, and then I'll talk about the creepy dark one that I didn't like at the time.
Okay.
The moment when it was surprising and delightful for me was when I played Resident Evil 4 for the first time with my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a certain point in the village where the enemies no longer just die from bullets like you're used to seeing in games, just things eventually fall over. But the heads pop. And I know this is a thing that happened throughout the Resident Evil experience. I know that older Resident Evil games had this, but having it in the PS2 era, I think in that such a smash success game, I think that set a trend for pinata NPC enemy characters.
Pinata?
Shooting them. Yeah, you shoot them, they blow up and candy comes out. Pinata. Sorry, I'm not speaking Spanish.
No, I was thinking about it in terms of Japanese. My brain is doing some weird things. Piñata. Like what? Piñata. That's not even I don't even think that's a word.
Anyway, so that was the exciting, delightful time. The first time I actually saw a head explode in a game traumatized me, which is when my sister's awful boyfriend came into my room and put his copy of Manhunt into my PS2, my gentle, tender PS2. He put it in there, and he like shot a bad guy, and his brains went all up against the wall, and it fell down, like it dripped down the wall. And he's like, "Isn't that cool?" And I was like, "Please leave my room." Anyway, so yeah, that was kind of like me witnessing the birth of it. I know that like
innocence lost.
Older examples. Yeah. This is my experience. This is all about my experience anyway. So yeah, that's an example. And now we see that all the time. We see like that juicy feedback, limbs exploding all the time. And I don't know. I would argue that Resident Evil 4 kind of popularized it and made it kind of, I don't know, zeitgeist, like interesting, and future games would really take off after that. You'd see a point in games where your guns got powerful enough to blow a head off, and that's one of my examples of a trend. a trend-setting moment in gaming history. There's a PS2 era classic.
Okay, that is so interesting. I'm trying.
Do you remember that moment, or did you not play?
I
Resident
didn't.
4?
I might have played I played Manhunt on the Wii, not on the
Okay.
PS2.
So a little
Because
late
you
to
could do
game then.
the strangling with the nunchuck. I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're. Yeah, that was silly.
Oh yeah, I love that. No, I love Manhunt. Honestly, it was traumatizing at the time because of the source
Hmm.
of the game being my sister's creepy boyfriend.
Yeah,
But later on in
don't
life,
want
I
that.
learned to appreciate that game. It's one of my favorite games. I love it.
Manhunt is one of your favorite games.
Manhunt.
Okay, I learned so much about you every time we do this. You got to play Manhunt
I'm
and then
three
King and Lynch too.
dimensional.
Yeah, you are. You're very deep
Mhm.
well. Okay, the one I thought of, and I'm not really sure what game changed this.
Well, just your
was
experience doesn't have to. We don't have to be like Wikipedia over here. I'm sure there are
well,
other games that
okay.
had
So
exploding.
I distinctly remember playing a lot of like air combat games when I was a kid for some reason. I think dude, I loved Ace Combat. I have no idea why. I really liked dogfighting in video games. I played Star Fox when I was a kid, so maybe that's where it came from. But I think I played every single Ace Combat game, and I remember that in all of those games, the movement always defaulted to inverted controls, where where if you press up on the controller, it moves your ship down, right? So
Right. I think it's because they're meant for like joystick movement, and that makes more sense with the what do you call it, the stick in the airplane.
yeah, for sure. Like, dude, my uncle had a Mech Warrior rig. He had like
Oh,
the
nice.
whole joystick thing. So I played. I can't believe he had that. But yeah, dude, I played like Mech Warrior inverted and everything too. I don't remember the inflection point at which games started to not use inverted controls though, because I remember even into the PS2 era, controls were still inverted, and then at some point everyone's just like, what the fuck, like, we're not all pilots. let's just
Totally.
have up mean up, you know.
Yeah, that's totally like a relic of when they're first getting 3D controls down. They're like, oh, your head. When you go to look your head down, you go down. So obviously you pull down on it or something like that. Like there's some like connection there with or earlier
It might have been
PS,
like PC.
PS1.
Yeah, I wonder if it was when PC games started to gain prevalence that they're like, no one's gonna move
Oh.
the mouse right to go left or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Could be. Yeah. There was definitely a point where like you'd be playing a PC game and you'd start playing, and be like, ah, damn it, and you had to go into the settings and look and find the thing like tick 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 tick, and then here it is, and then you'd be all set.
We're gonna
And then
sound
there's
like
some
such
players-
boomers this entire time.
There's some kids who are the weird kids, and they would have to go in every time. Like they'd go to play Halo, and they'd grab your friend's controller, and they'd be like, you
Dude, yes.
plebeian, and they'd go into the setting and they'd invert the controls, and you'd be like, you're ruining it for everyone else. They're like,
I'm
"Can't play
pretty
otherwise."
sure I played Halo 1 inverted.
You sicko.
I know. That might have been the last game I played inverted. Yeah. Probably.
I don't think I ever got into inverted control. Maybe when I was playing I think flight games it's kind of more intuitive, but just walking around looking with your head, there's definitely a certain way that you want the camera to move.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we collectively made the right decision of moving away from inverted. I
I don't know. I think it's kind of like whatever you're used to. It's like left and right-handedness. I just feel like
yeah.
because you can do the mental gymnastics to make pulling back on the analog stick point you up,
Right.
just as much as pushing forward on it makes you look up. Like I think you can do the associations with like either the physical feedback of it, like what's relevant in physicality in physical space. But yeah, anyway, we did land on non-inverted. So
I watched the Nextlander guys play games sometimes, like a bunch of the ex-Giant Bomb dudes. And Vinny Caravella, he's like in his late 40s or early 50s. And he plays inverted for every single game. So he has to like every time they do like a quick look or just start a game, he's like, oh, I gotta go.
He's gotta go into
menu
settings.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that guy. I think I've watched one of those videos where he does
Yeah,
that.
they're
It
really
sounds very
awesome.
familiar. The Giant Bomb cast. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah,
totally.
it's really
yeah.
funny to see him continue to do that with every game he plays.
But what's nice is the games never cease to offer the option, right?
That is true. That is true.
So-
Interesting. Maybe we'll cross
around.
an inflection point again where it's like,
that
why
is
even
such a like
bother?
it's such a vestigial part of games now. That I don't think the kids weren't around for that. We witnessed the birth of it.
Yeah.
I've got another one.
Okay.
Are you ready for another one?
I'm
I got
ready.
a little list here. Let's see if there's one.
Whoa, you've
okay,
a list. Preparation.
I made a quick list here.
All right.
This one's kind of fun. I think this is something that we witnessed the birth of. Game character gameplay banter. That wasn't always a thing.
Okay.
So I think youngsters would be surprised to find when they go play an adventure game or something that the character isn't always commenting on everything when they play. There's not always a little quippy banter going on. There's not fun chatter between NPCs all the time. Sometimes NPCs just follow you, and that's it. And it's not until cutscenes where you get to hear them speak. But I think this was happening more and more during the PS3 generation. But when the first Uncharted hit, I think that was the trendsetter.
That's
I think
good
the first
example.
Uncharted, because I remember playing that and just being so like, man, this is so refreshing. That puzzle is ridiculous. He is wet. Like after he says like, oh, I'm really wet now.
Yeah.
So having the character talk to me basically was so immersive and new and interesting at the time. And I think that was a big trendsetter. At games after that point, we saw, to their detriment in a lot of cases, more and more banter between NPCs during gameplay.
Yeah.
And like
we did move away from the silent protagonist at some point, didn't we?
Yeah. The silent protagonist, totally. And speaking of that, actually, I think an older example of this happening, maybe not as trendsetting as Uncharted.
That's a word.
Half-Life 2,
Mm-hmm.
they had that. They had gameplay banter. Obviously, Gordon Freeman didn't speak, but all the other characters around him would talk to him, which was pretty immersive as well. Like they'd always chatter while you're playing the game, which was a very immersive part of that game too.
Yeah.
But I think it was Uncharted, Nathan Drake, spitting out those one-liners, talking about, being the everyman. People related to that, and that became such a staple in games of that generation and remains to this day. I think you're probably playing like God of War now, and I'm sure that there's like quirky, snappy banter between the characters as you're just playing this war god walking through the forest. I'm sure I haven't played that game, but I'm sure there is. And yeah, I think we have Uncharted to thank. What do you think?
I'm hard pressed to think of an example before Uncharted.
Well, I think there were PC games with that sort of thing going on.
Really?
At least.
Okay.
Well, like Half-Life 2 had.
Well, I mean,
and I
even,
feel like Half-Life
even the
2
original
was,
Half-Life did, but like that was very much an innovation at the time. And I don't like Half-Life came out during the PS2 era,
right?
And I don't know. I'm sure there is a game, but I can't really think of many PS2 games that did that.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it sparked in the PS3 era.
Yeah.
Because of that stuff. Yeah. And there's even a lot of PS3 games that just don't have it, and it feels kind of odd. Outside of like radio chatter that you get from people, like mission briefs. But I think Uncharted, there's an attitude there that was special. There's like that everyman kind of cocky attitude that was fun. Like Indiana Jones kind of, Indiana Jones, Jackie Chan kind of like, whoa.
Well, I'm trying to like Mandela affect my way into thinking of an example. Like, did CJ comment on anything? But I don't think he.
I think so. I think he would say. I mean, the NPCs would, but I mean,
I don't know if there was anything more than like a whoa or. Yeah, basically
stuff
that.
Like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Interjections is what that would be called. I think that actually like making comments and stuff, that was pretty unique for the time.
Red Dead Redemption is the game that I thought of as well, but that was after Uncharted. And it was still PS3 era though.
Yeah.
GTA
and also,
4
like,
even?
GTA 4 had it, yeah. So that was also PS3 era. Yeah.
Yeah.
New thing.
Okay, I like that one. All right.
Yeah. Did you think of another one, or I have another one here? If you.
Yeah, I've got one. Voice chat in games, but
like
that's still a thing. I guess like the early days of voice chat though. Doesn't matter.
That's what I'm talking about though.
Well, I guess.
Yeah.
Right,
no, it's a trend that still exists now that people didn't see the birth. Like our baby listeners didn't see the birth of.
Because
voice chat, you take it for granted.
Yeah, like Ventrilo and TeamSpeak and Skype were... Dude, I was using Skype as recently as 2014 to voice chat when I was playing League of Legends.
Oh, really?
That was some insane... No, 2016 even? Right, yeah, really? Pre-Discord. That was insane shit, because Skype sucked. Skype sucked and sucks. Sorry to all the Skype users out there, but it is terrible.
I mean, everything has a voice chat in it now. Like, even Steam had their own voice chat that I was using a long time ago.
Yeah, but even...
I never used Skype.
Even then, because I know I used voice chat when I was playing CS Source, and I'm trying to remember how I did that. But that's the thing. It was so hard. Like, in a lot of games, you had to add people as friends and, like, DM them somehow if it was a PC game. And then you, like, get their info for Skype or TeamSpeak or whatever it was, and then you have to, like, be on the same server. And I think even before then there were other solutions, but probably not many. But yeah, voice chat was
what I used. Because maybe they didn't have voice chat back then. When Counter-Strike Source is the first Counter-Strike I played, and also Half-Life 2 Deathmatch.
Yep.
I think we were chatting in something else. I think we were chatting either in Steam itself or some other software. But I think we used Steam back then. Even.
I'm trying to remember when, because, like, I know voice chat gained a ton of prominence with the 360. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I was gonna say Halo had like a voice chat.
Was it on the Xbox?
No, Xbox Live had chat. Yeah, that was one of the big features because they had like a headset that would clip into the controller or something like that.
Right.
I remember my friend had one.
Yeah.
The Duke.
So I think that might have been really when voice, like maybe Halo 1 on the Xbox is when voice chat became accessible and started its path towards ubiquity.
Yeah, no, that's actually what I was talking about. Was the first Halo? They had like voice chat options.
Right,
and stuff.
right.
They had special Microsoft made headsets, and it was all very like first.
Because dude, the 360 era, that's probably when. Yeah, I mean that was a seismic shift in the prevalence, like the commonality of voice chat. And
that made it big, I think, because the PC Master Race was doing voice chat on Steam.
Well, I think it made it accessible. It made it accessible to people, right? Like people were like down to do voice chat.
Totally.
Because of that,
it exposed people to the idea for sure. Like a mass amount of people to like to the point where like if you didn't have this set up in your game after that, like I remember because PS2 didn't really have voice chat. I mean, I'm sure there was a way to hook up a microphone to it and stuff. Or use the PS2i or whatever it was called.
Yeah. Dude, I used PS2 voice chat when I was playing Area 51. Just fucking crazy to think about.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm not making that up. But no, dude,
Here's what
really...
I used to do.
Go ahead.
I used to get the phone and tape the phone to my head, the landline in the house. And me and my friend would just chat and play offline together. I would play like PS2 game, like a single player PS2 game alone, and he would play something else or just be hanging out, and then we'd just be chatting.
How did you do? Did you like tape it to a hat and then you wore the hat?
What did I do? Did I have a hat?
You would just tape it to your head. That's insane. Or maybe a
I remember
headband?
taping it to myself. I don't know, actually.
That's insane.
I remember tape was involved. It might have been I taped it to a hat because I wouldn't tape it to my hair.
Yeah.
But
that would be not worth it.
Hands-free voice chat while you're gaming.
Hands-free voice chat. Man.
That was before like I had a PC of my own. It was just me on PS2 with my friends.
No, it's interesting, dude, because like I guess we have seen the development of like games are inherently a social experience, but communication was the communication tools were missing to really bridge those social gaps that only existed through gameplay before, right? And now it's you play games and communicate with your friends at the same time.
Yeah. I think the demand, like the proliferation.
Proliferation. Yeah.
Proliferation of I want to get it right.
Exclusively use big words on this podcast.
Proliferation. I think the proliferation of online gaming in general kind of like warranted the necessity for chat.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of games you'd actually bring up a keyboard on like a console. I remember some PS3 games had like You could bring up a keyboard chat.
Yeah, no,
thing.
you could even have an actual keyboard plugged into an original Xbox. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
and even a 360.
PS3. They both had USB. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I would do that. I would do that on the PS3. But I think the fact that there was online gaming on the Xbox kind of necessitated chat functionality. And
dude,
then ever since then, all the consoles have had
with...
online.
Yeah, sorry.
I remember like playing online and then just getting a random message for someone on the PS3, like, "You want to join my clan?" or like something vile or like whatever. "You stole my kill."
Dude, I had people talk shit to me in DMs on console before, but it's like, bruh, you spent. How long did that take you? That had to have taken you
back when it took
between
a while.
3 to 5 minutes to type that message out.
Plug in his keyboard, or he had to use the like virtual keyboard with the controller.
The amount of effort it took to talk shit in DMs.
That's for the youngsters. That's like typing out a message to someone, like a full sentence to someone on the Netflix keyboard.
It's equivalent to like finding a pigeon, training that pigeon to deliver messages, and then writing it out and attaching it to the pigeon.
Yeah, and being mad the whole time. And then hitting send.
Yeah,
it's another level of being sad online.
All right, hit me with another one.
I have another one here. This is something that I think we really take for granted nowadays. It's organic tutorializing.
Ooh,
and I think this one's a special one because organic tutorialization was very, very commonplace in older games because they were pick up and play. There was no tutorial. So they kind of taught you as you played. And this kind of went, I think, up through like PS1 even. And then we started to see that going away with explainer tutorials, like overly done tutorial levels, explainer tutorials, onboarding that was like, it took you an hour to get through. And then I think by the time we got the PS3, it was still like that. Like we were getting overly complicated games and overly complicated systems that needed overly complicated tutorials to explain everything. And the art of game design was kind of feeling very dystopian or whatever, like cynical at that point, because games were so up their own butt with like the complexity of it that you needed some talking head explaining something with a text box, and you had to do a tutorial mission and all this garbage. And it got to the point where it was like a meme where like every few steps a bloop would pop up in the corner and it would stop all the action and it would explain stuff to you. And I think thankfully we've moved away from that by now. People have complained enough to where now games just onboard you as you play. It's kind of relaxing and fun. And there's definitely no text boxes popping up. So I think we've come full circle to where now the game design facilitates gameplay as opposed to game design being overly complicated up its own butt and needing like a manual in a time where there are no manuals. So you need a virtual manual in the game.
Yeah.
And that's something that we saw the whole arc of, like playing through games.
Huh.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the frustration of like the game freezing and a full screen splash would come up with like a stupid PNG of what you're supposed to do, and it would explain it, and you have to read it, and you're just like, oh my god, just let me play the game, I'll figure it out. Yeah. There was a whole era where that was so popular.
Which is really interesting because the original Super Mario World, and I don't know, man, maybe this is why Mario is just like always referenced. Mario had organic tutorialization.
Totally.
Because you could choose whether or not you hit the question, or not the question power-up blocks, but like I think they were question mark blocks, right? Where you jump on them, like, or you have to hit them, and it'll pop up with that same kind of message. But you could also just not hit that, and it was just visually distinctly different to where it's like, okay, if you don't hit that, then whatever. Or if you hit it once, you're like, okay, I know what this is, and if I don't want that, I won't have to do it again. And yet we went the other direction for a long time there.
It's because it's not easy to make good level design or good game design. Like I think Nintendo is.
Well, okay, I would go so far as to say that like,
statement,
but if design is not intuitive, then are you doing something wrong inherently?
Yes.
you know?
No, all games you should be able to just pick up the controller and know what to do. Like,
or be able to figure it out at least.
And unless you're playing like an RTS, like a big war game on the PC or something, like of course that's going to be, you need to read the manual, you need to read the, like what to do. You do a little tutorial to onboard you. Otherwise we'll spend like months learning how to play. But a game like a platformer or an adventure game or something, it should be intuitive. Like we have a controller designed specifically for our hands to function on it like organically. And so the button presses and the movements should be intuitive as well. And that should also play into the game design. I think Nintendo's been nailing that forever, and they've never stopped.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas other developers, it's quicker, easier, cheaper to just have, like, I don't know, have text boxes explaining things. Because I guess there's also like a lot of people getting games digitally at a certain point. So if you didn't onboard the player immediately with text and stuff, you have the risk of like losing that buyer. They get a refund. They can't figure it out. They get a refund.
Players are also smarter now and have probably played more games in aggregate, just like as a population. So people are more used to the act of playing video games, which I think has helped a great deal in allowing us as players and as developers to shift back towards, I don't know if I want to say ambiguity, but like giving the player the breadth to experience the game in a natural state and not be
there's
like,
more video game literates.
Video game literacy is through the roof.
Whereas like, I think when this was a big thing, when tutorials, like inorganic tutorials was a big thing, was basically like the height of GameStop. Like people just getting video game after work, going home and just popping it in, and not like being online at all, not being part of discourse, not being on social media, not being part of that whole culture, just like, and they needed those games not to be returned and stuff. So they needed to make sure that the player knew, without any risk taking, that they knew how to play their game and would hold on to it and continue. So like an onboarding, like it's holding you by the throat or leashing you along, sort of tutorializing.
Prima strategy guides used to be a multi-million-dollar business, right?
Prima. Like, oh yeah, totally. Strategy guides. Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of extending from the tutorial thing, but like, that like GameFAQs existed, you know? Now you just look up YouTube videos or just
there was like the Nintendo hotline.
Yeah, there was. I guess the Nintendo hotline was the first version.
That was before my day, but yeah, I remember that was the whole thing. You just call, if you're stuck on a game like Zelda, you'd call up and be like, "How do I get the thing?"
Yeah, dude, that's so
and there'd be
crazy.
Some dork on the other end of the line, like, "Yeah, don't worry, young boy, I'll show you how to do it." It's so wholesome, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
just like
it is.
Just a grown man at the end of this line, just like, "Oh yeah, totally, yeah, you get that like sword for the ice sword or whatever."
Yeah,
it's so endearing.
It also reminds me of like how, you know, of course people would buy games based on the art, but that's dating back as long as games have existed and still exist today. But reading a review for a game in a magazine has certainly gone away or transformed in favor of the YouTube review or like, you know, short form clips of games. But before it's like, if you wanted more context on a game, you'd kind of have to pick up Game Informer or like seek out, or Game Informer or an equivalent, or like seek out one of the few websites that was doing that kind of thing, like GameSpot or IGN or whatever it might have been. Yeah.
I guess like this more applies in this era, this older era. It applies to like actually just the movement, like the basic controls and mechanisms for moving around in the 3D space. Because like I think like an example for today, like Elden Ring is a pick up and play game. But there's that layer of like how to get certain items and stuff, which is like, that's the tricky part. That's the part where you don't just want the game to tell you. You don't want like a compass with an arrow pointing you. Hey, that's another thing we could talk about is the compass pointing.
The compass, the arrow. Yeah.
But
sure.
So we go online onto Wikipedia and we look that stuff up on the wiki to find out like where the item is, how to get the item, how to find a quest or whatever. And because that's a deep ass game. It's not very approachable, but it's still like pick up and play as far as the game mechanics are concerned. So yeah, I have one more here.
Yeah,
well, I have two
hit me with the rest of your list, and I think that might
I've got
be our
two
show.
more.
Okay,
I can wrap this up. Actually, let's just do this one. The other one I don't think is as interesting.
Hit me with the one that you think is less strong first.
Oh, okay. I was gonna cut it off short, but sure. The less interesting one is climbing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any Tomb Raider. Maybe did you climb in?
Yeah, you jumped and climbed in that. Yep.
Yeah, you like grabbed ledge. It was not like Uncharted. It was like you could jump and grab a ledge.
To Uncharted. Yeah, jumping, grabbing ledge, or jumping up, pulling yourself up.
Yes.
Or shimmying across things.
Totally.
That was a Tomb Raider thing. But it wasn't big back then. It didn't get big until I would say, again, Uncharted
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
And then it became like even Grand Theft Auto 4 has a parkour system in it. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I mean,
like you can jump
kinda.
up, you can basically jump across buildings and like grab ledges and go across scaffolding and stuff. It's dumpy, like you'll tumble down and physics out and whatever and fall down.
The physics in GTA 4 is fucking crazy, but
it's there because there's no reason. It's just there for you to get up on top of buildings, I guess, and to climb over cars and stuff. But that wasn't I mean, when we were growing up, characters were just like stiff capsules that just moved, that just slid across the ground and turned and rotated and looked at things. It wasn't really until Uncharted, and after that you get like basically every game. And again, I think it happened again when Breath of the Wild came out, and you could climb everything, and now everything has climbing in it again. So that was another big explosion. But before that, like Shadow of the Colossus was just such a huge,
there you go.
like, that was such a huge deal when Shadow of the Colossus, you could just climb around on this thing. Like that was a big tech demonstration for that thing.
Yeah.
A big showcase was just being able to grapple on and climb. I mean, Ico had a system like that too. They had a kind of a parkour system as well, similar to the Uncharted or the Grand Theft Auto 4, where you just kind of, or Tomb Raider, where you just kind of jump. It's for puzzle solving and stuff. You jump and grab a ledge and pull yourself up. I think that's probably the earliest example.
Okay, I think climbing was good. Let's hear the one that you.
Okay, so my last one that I thought of, I don't know, maybe you have more to share on this one because I didn't play a lot of shooters, but cover shooting. Was a big one from when we were growing up, right?
Yeah. Well,
so like, because we still see cover shooting nowadays. Like people still take cover.
Yeah, they're generally
like The Last of Us.
Yeah, I don't think that formula has really been innovated upon for a very long time, though. Because I think the example that I've heard is Project Winback of being like the earliest cover shooter, but Gears of War is really the game that that defined what a cover shooter was, and then like every shooter it felt like was a cover shooter for a long time. I don't know. I guess you can kind of go back to like Black on the PS2. You could kind of sort of take cover. Yeah, it wasn't
like leaning and stuff.
Yeah. It wasn't like super robust. You could even lean in Call of Duty 2, I think. But yeah, it wasn't like an in-depth system like Gears of War was, where it was very tactical, where you roadie run up to a wall and then you could like pivot to another barricade. You could peek. You could blind fire, right? Like there were a lot of really tight systems that were all focused on that cover. And then we basically
built into the whole system.
Yeah, and then we basically had that from 2005 up until now, except it's not really, again, been iterated upon in any sort of meaningful leap forward, or in fact has straight up devolved in some cases. Like,
well, I think Gears of War, when they did it, they were designing something for the gameplay. Like that's their
for sure
character controller. They're designed for the basic functionality of how the game plays. That's why it's so tight, and that's why it feels so good in the game. And after that, I think people were putting it in their games because it was then expected and it was trendy.
Yeah.
And so it didn't, the design of the game wasn't built around this cover shooting. It was instead kind of added into it.
Yeah.
Because that's what people expected. So even I would say Uncharted, there's a cover shooting in Uncharted, but I don't think it would have been that much, that it would have been that bad if you just crouch behind stuff. You don't need it. You don't need to like, you don't necessarily. Well, I think the level design and stuff makes it necessary.
But they didn't have to design the levels like that. You're in the middle of a jungle. Like, you're in the middle of a jungle, and there's just like a concrete barricade. Like the fuck, dude. It doesn't have to be.
I mean, it's still enjoyable. I think they did a good job in there anyway. Like it's. But yeah, since then, like if you have a third-person shooter, it has to have a cover system in it.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way to like lock into the cover. I remember Vanquish. Did you ever play Vanquish?
I played Vanquish for like 30 minutes once.
I mean, it's only like an hour long or whatever, 2 hours long.
It was very fun though. But Vanquish was fast. Like you weren't meant to. Was there even cover in that game?
You get pinned down sometimes. Yeah, you get cover. You leap over and stuff.
I just remember like zooming around, shooting robots and stuff. Yeah, that's my big memory.
No, I thought that game was awesome. It was so pretty. It's just like an arcade game.
Yeah, it had that slide. I just loved it. Oh, it had the power slide. Dude, the running slide. That's another good one.
running slide. I also just thought of like another one from Resident Evil 4, which is just like over the shoulder shooting in general.
Yeah.
And that's why like the creator of I think one of the designers from Resident Evil 4, is it Shinji Mikami? I don't want to like say names actually.
I don't know.
one of the prolific no, I can't say it. Prolific folks on the Resident Evil and the Capcom games went on to make the controller system for Vanquished and give it that flair, that fun style. So yeah, similar. And I think the sliding thing, another innovation maybe that he did there, because the whole like over the shoulder shooting in a third person game, like that was fresh too. That's another one that we only see third person shooters with that same camera because we saw it in Resident Evil 4, right? There's earlier examples, sure, but that was like where it was tightened right up, made nice, turned into a thing.
All right, and now do we get off of our soapboxes?
Yeah, we can stand down from our. We're just gonna crawl away from our armchairs that
don't
we're
worry
up
don't
against
worry
the fire.
youngins we're returning the tome back to the shelf,
putting the tome back now I gotta get switched into role play mode to close the show.
Just take
does it
a
anyway.
puff of the pipe. Well, dear reader,
that concludes our story time for today. Until next time, we'll pull another book off the shelf and talk about other things that are video games centric.
Please close every show moving forward with your Gandalf impression.
When I was editing, I got to the episode where I do the Gandalf impression, and you were like very impressed by it. I listened to myself, and I was not impressed.
Artists are always their own harshest critics, Winston.
So now I'm just like, I don't know if it's warranted, the praise. Anyway.
Well, in any event.
Well, if you liked what you heard, you can help support the show and hear even more behind the scenes bonus pre and post show content and bonus episodes on our Patreon, patreon.com/storyplayers. We upload, every time we upload one of these episodes, a super special version with extra bookends, right?
Usually Minions related content.
Yep, Minions related content. Oh no, was that part of the episode or was that before? Were we talking
that
about
that was before, I think.
Oh no, you're breaking the fourth wall. Anyway, you can help support the show. You can help pay for all the editing that goes into this, all the PR that goes into this, all the processing, that we need to do to make this show possible. We'd be very, very thankful for your contribution and support. And of course, there's going to be other special fun things that we do over there, like asking you guys questions and stuff on the Patreon. So go ahead, check it out. That's patreon.com/storyplayers. We can't wait to see you there. And I have been Winston Powell, otherwise known as Acorn Bringer. You can find me at Acorn Bringer on most social medias. I'm working on a game called Of Love and Eternity. I'm currently selling shirts right now. I don't know if they will still be selling when this comes out, because the delay on the episode release is probably like 3 months or something like that at this point. So anyway, maybe look for shirts.
Yeah.
I may or may not have shirts for sale. But yeah, you can definitely check out the demo for Of Love and Eternity. You can also support me on Patreon if you want to see some behind the scenes content, special tutorials, and other things related to Acorn Bringer developments. At Acorn Bringer. So Zach, where can people find you?
Right
what
on.
You got going on?
Well, people can find the shirt that I'm wearing at defector.com. Just go to the merch store and get a Quit Your Job shirt. They're very, very powerful. Right. But I have been and continue to be Zachary Snader. And if you want to find what our studio Wildkind is working on, you can go to wildkind.gg or follow us at Wildkind Creations on the socials. We're doing stuff. We're doing stuff, and we're trying to do stuff publicly in terms of like development, not just talking about our game, but talking about what it's like to build a studio and what it's like to make games and that kind of thing. So if that interests you, hit us up.
Yeah, follow along.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Thank you.
I guess I'll catch you,
Thank you, buddy.
On the flip side.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
I don't know if that's a good way to end. I kind of had like a burp halfway.
Try one more. One more. Go.
Well, it's been great chatting with you, Zach. I'll catch you on the flip side.
He still said the same thing. All right. Yep. Catch you on the flip side. Later.
Yep.
Skater.
Well, I burped halfway through, so I didn't know if it sounded weird.
No, that was excellent.